Oh, hey, I didn't see you come in. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Michael Jenvik, and I am the chef here at Moving Mountains. Thank you so much for purchasing one of our drop-off meals. We are super excited about having this as an offering for our community. I'm now going to remove my mask because for the remainder of this video, I will not be wearing my mask for ease of communication. I would, however, like to say that all of our employees at Moving Mountains are following all CDC and FDA guidelines while preparing, cooking, and serving all of your meals that you will receive from us. We can't wait to see you in the kitchen. Hello, welcome to the kitchen. This evening we are going to be preparing a wonderful shrimp dish with sesame noodles over here. Super simple dish, but wonderfully easy and delicious. We have these lovely 6 jumbo shrimp over here that we've nicely deveined and peeled for you, washed, ready to go. And then we have all our nice little veggies that are going to go into a really quick stir fry over a bed of noodles that we're going to toss with the shiitake vinaigrette. Super easy. We'll kind of explain the ingredients and the different sauces as we go along, but let's get started. So first, what I want you to do is get all of your mise en place out, all of your stuff ready to go. And we're going to get a pan nice and hot. Medium high heat. We're going to get a nice sear on these shrimp to get going. But first we're just going to want to toss the shrimp in a little bit of salt and pepper. So I'm just going to do a little bit of sesame oil, salt and pepper, and then we're going to kind of toss them together. This way the shrimp are coated nicely in all of that seasoning before they hit the pan. And if we need to add a little bit more oil to the pan, we will, but we'll see. So let's see how good we did with heating up this pan. Ooh, baby. That sounds like magic to me. All right, so we're gonna get all the shrimp in there. We don't wanna ever overcrowd the pan with something like this. 6 shrimp should do it with a pan this size. This is pretty good. This way they're gonna get a nice hard sear on the pan itself. I'm gonna turn the heat up a little bit because I just noticed that there's, it's not maybe as hot as I could have it. And if we had an overcrowded pan, if you were using a really tiny pan for this amount of shrimp, or a pan this size and you were doing shrimp for 2 and you had 12 shrimp in there, the shrimp would start to kind of like be on top of each other and almost steam in the pan opposed to getting a nice hard sear. So it's really important to kind of remember to give the shrimp enough room in the pan itself. And I'm also going to add a little bit more oil to the pan. This is kind of just using my own judgment. That little bit that I marinated the shrimp in was just not enough. And I'm just going to add a little bit more fat to the pan to really give that sizzle and let things start moving. So while that's cooking, let's go over our sesame noodles. So here are some classic wheat noodles that have been ramen style that we've just blanched in hot water and salt. And then we've shocked in ice water to stop the cooking process right after they've become nice and tender to the bite. They've tossed with a little bit of sesame oil to keep them from sticking overnight. And now we're going to toss them with our shiitake vinaigrette. So this is shiitake mushrooms that we've sliced very, very thinly. And we've sauteed over a hot pan, and we've added some scallions, a little bit of ginger, garlic, sesame seeds, sesame oil, some rice wine vinegar, and a little bit of soy sauce, just to kind of round out the vinaigrette and add a little bit of umami and kind of saltiness to the dish. So we're gonna add all this and kind of toss this together with the noodles. And this is gonna be the bed and the base for our stir fry. So it's gonna be really, really nice to have this abundance of kale and broccoli and all these other little veggies to kind of go over the top. So we've got that, and we'll put that to the side. And now let's take a look at our shrimp. So I'm gonna get out my pair of tongs or metal chopsticks. And see right here, we've got a really nice kind of dark pink caramelization there. And from knowing we're gonna toss this in the sauce later with the warm vegetables and the warm sauce, I know that that's enough where this is about halfway cooked, where we'll now flip it, get another sear on the other side, and then we'll finish these shrimp in the sauce to kind of finish and cook through. They'll be almost 70% cooked when we take them off the plate, but then they'll kind of finish and soak up all the lovely juices from the sauce when they finish. So the sauce that we are using today, that I've made, is a really simple kind of basic Asian brown sauce. So a little bit of honey, ginger, garlic, soy sauce, and rice wine vinegar. Just a touch to add a little bit of acidity to the dish. And then I put in a bit of cornstarch, about for this amount, about a tablespoon of cornstarch, and I whisk it in really well without any clumps. Now if you see that there are any clumps in here when you get this at your house, I want you to give it a little stir or a small whisk to get those clumps out before we put it into the pan, because that's going to really help with thickening the sauce appropriately and not leave any clumps at the end. And now you can see we've got another really nice sear on this other side, and the shrimp is just almost cooked through. I can feel that it's still a little cold in the middle, so I'm going to remove that, and then that will just warm through when we finish the dish. So we'll get those guys out using our handy dandy Asian style metal tongs. A wonderful way to take those shrimp out of the pan, and so delicate that we're not going to destroy them. Now I'm going to take a look at this pan, and I notice there's not too much oil left in it, so we're going to add just a touch more sesame oil to the pan before we add our veggies. So I've got some dinosaur or lacinato kale here that we've julienned, which means sliced very, very thin. I've removed the ribs, which is kind of the more fibrous part that isn't as tender. And I've just cut it very, very thin and washed it for you. So now you can add that to the pan and it just starts sizzling right away. And we just kind of want to wilt this kale down. So it still has like a little bit of bite to it, but not too much. It's going to kind of almost fold and almost mix with the sauce and really kind of fold into the entire dish itself. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Always season your food through each step. So as we add the kale, we're going to season. Then as we add the scallions and the chilies, we'll season again very lightly. But once again, we are adding a very strong soy sauce flavored sauce, so we don't want to season too heavily with this dish as we're going. And I can see the kale is kind of starting to wilt a little bit here. I'm going to use a little bit of water that I'm just going to pour in to the pan, which is going to allow that kale to steam even more. And you can see it's getting that nice, rich, dark green color after we added the water. And we're ready for our other vegetables as the water starts evaporating. So we're going to add some scallion and some of our chili. So this is both jalapeno and red Fresno chili that I've sliced super thin. I've de-seeded, taken all the seeds out, and taken some of the white pithy ribs out of the middle, which will remove some of the spice, but not all of the spice. And I've tasted these chilies to understand how spicy they are. And these were on a more of a milder level of chili. So I'm going to be adding all of this to this dish. But if you were to taste the chili and say, wow, that is just way too spicy for me, pull back and just use a little bit in this dish. But I think for this amount, this will be just fine. And now we'll season once again, just with a little bit of salt on those peppers and on those scallions to draw out their liquid. And I'm just going to add a touch more oil because I can see the pan is a bit dry. So I'm going to add a little bit more sesame oil to the pan and get that baby going. So now we want the scallions and the chilies to kind of wilt down, maybe even char a little bit, but not get super, super soft. We still want them to have a little bit of bite in this dish. Which would be really, really nice. You know, the history of most Asian cuisine is they were in Chinese culture, they were this large country with a lot of people. And they had to figure out a way to how to cook food very quickly and efficiently for so many people. And they realized that if they were to heat up a wok or one big kind of cooking vessel very, very hot with a bit of wood or coal and heat that up very, very hot and cut all the food up in very, very tiny pieces, they could quickly utilize that heat and cook it very, very quickly for people, and then serve a lot of people without utilizing so much energy to produce that food. And that's why kind of Chinese food and Asian food is the way it is with these tiny bits. And we've done the same here. So now we're gonna add our broccolini, which has been lightly blanched and shocked. So once again, I've kind of submerged this in hot water like we did with the noodles, and then removed it and put it in ice water to stop the cooking process. And so it's nice and tender to the bite, because I'm gonna throw this in at the end. So it's gonna kind of fold in, but we don't need to worry about it cooking too much. We just wanna kind of bring it back to temperature and let it steam a little bit. And this has already been salted, so I won't add any more salt there. And we'll kind of just toss it through. And now it's time for our sauce. So I can see that the kale has wilted down now. The chilies and the scallions are starting to soften and caramelize a little bit on the bottom of the pan. So now it's ready for our Asian sauce. So I'm just gonna give it a stir to kind of, nice stir to it. So I want the mixture to be nice and homogeneous before we put it in the pan. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a stir right before putting it in. And I'm gonna let it just kind of hit the bottom of the pan and get up to a nice sizzle. And then once that sauce comes up to temperature and gets up to a simmer, the cornstarch is gonna work its magic and thicken that sauce really, really nicely and coat everything. I'm just gonna add a touch more water to the pan and then add our shrimp back in. Because like I said, these are only cooked 70% now, so we want these to kind of soak up and absorb this beautiful sauce as it thickens in the bottom of the pan to coat all of our lovely vegetables and shrimp. So if we can get in here and get a close-up shot, we can see this sauce is kind of starting to thicken here as it's slowly simmering away and evaporating and getting that water that we put in and the other ingredients in that sauce slowly evaporate and thicken up really, really nice. And it's gonna come together really, really beautifully. And we're gonna give that a little toss and pop that back down on this machine because it does not like it when you take a pot off. And that is gonna come together in the next 30 seconds. So while that's finishing, let's start plating our dish. So we've got our beautiful little bowl here, where we could use a really nice plate as well. And we're gonna get the sesame noodles on the bottom, because I think that will give a nice bed and base to the dish. Where it will kind of, it's already been really nicely marinated, but it will soak up even more of this sauce. And while we're eating it, it will just make it that much more delicious. So we'll get this bed of noodles in the bottom. See, I had a really good Korean friend who once told me that chopsticks were the best utensil to ever use for any cooking method you could possibly think of. And here's a great example of where he was wrong. See, now, I'm able to get the noodles out of the bowl, but getting all these little shiitake mushrooms out is quite a challenge. And it would be really nice to have a more Western utensil, like a spoon, for instance, or something like that. It would be really helpful. But I will give it to him. It's a lot of fun to eat with chopsticks. A meal like this with all the noodles and the thinly sliced vegetables will really come together well. And now we can see this sauce has been cooking for another 30 seconds or so, and it is nice and tight. It's tightening up. We're gonna turn this guy off. And we are going to plate these wonderful shrimp around the plate, or you could put them on top, however you like. That's the beauty of cooking for yourself, is you can make it as fancy or as rustic as you would like. And we're just gonna get these vegetables up on top, a really nice pile. And this is gonna be such a nice, light, and tasty way to finish your day. Those wonderful shrimp and all the kale and the broccoli on top mixed in together with the noodles. Awesome. And with this meal, we have a couple lovely pairings that we recommend, but you could go a couple different ways. And now that the dish is finished, we have a couple options that we recommend here at Moving Mountains that would go really well with this particular dish. Here in Steamboat, we have a couple great producers that make some different wines and beers. One in particular is our Steamboat Winery. The woman that runs this winery makes wonderful products, has a wide variety of different wines, but her Sauvignon Blanc in particular would go excellent with this dish. Really nice, mellow, light wine that would go with this more pungent, flavorful dish. Now, if you wanted to go like for like, to go with a pungent, flavorful drink to go with this dish, you could go with Storm Peak Brewery's The Zest Is Yet to Come. Little play on words they got going on there. Citrus ginger wheat, really nice pungent ginger flavor in the beer. Go with the pungent ginger flavor in the dish. It'd be an awesome pairing. Enjoy your meal, everyone. Cheers.